Welcome to Tuesday's tool video. The tools that we're going to be focusing on this week's video are the Big Shot embossing folders and Thinlit dies. They're two of my favorite tools to use with the Big Shot. And here's an example of a card. Watch Sunday's video and you'll see exactly how this card came together. But on this card, the numbers are cut out with a large numbers Thinlit die and our beautiful glimmer paper, and then the polka dots are raised up using an embossing folder, and that's the dry embossing technique that we'll cover with the Big Shot today. So I'm going to start with the base of the card. The first thing is the embossing, so we'll start with the embossing folder. And one thing that I want to start out with is when you get if you have a Big Shot already, you're probably familiar with this, but if you haven't used a Big Shot, one of the first things that people need to learn about is how to use the platform. So the Big Shot comes with a platform, and it was recently redesigned, and it used to be one piece with parts that flipped over on a hinge. Now it comes in multiple pieces, and on the surface of the Big Shot platform it has directions on how to, we basically consider it a sandwich. You build a sandwich depending on what you're using it to cut, and that'll get it the right amount of pressure so that if you're embossing, it doesn't go through the paper. If you're cutting, that it goes all the way through the paper and you're not left having to tear the image out. So this base on its own is what is used to do the embossing folders, which is what we're going to use today. And then if you wanted to use one of the Thinlit dies that we're going to use next, you can just add the Thinlit die adapter, and it makes this taller, and so there's more pressure, and that's what lets it cut. Next, after we do the embossing, though, I'll show you another alternative, which is the magnetic platform, which I like to use for the dies. So we're going to set this aside, and for the embossing folder, the next layer is like the bread of the sandwich, are your clear cutting surfaces. One goes directly on top of the die, and then you have the embossing folder itself, and we have a large variety of these in the catalog. This one is the large polka dot folder, and for the base of the card I cut it at 5 1/4 by 4, so it'll have a 1/4 inch mat around the edges, and that goes inside your folder. And then the folder goes on top of the glass cutting plate, and so that's like your meat and your cheese, and then the last cutting plate goes on top of that. That's your top bun, and that makes your sandwich. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to pull out my Big Shot. And this is the Big Shot made specifically for Stampin' Up. And it is the Sizzix model, so they have a partnership. And I'm going to set the whole sandwich that I just made onto the base of the Big Shot. Now each of the Big Shots can be slightly differently calibrated. So I have seen other demonstrators use their Big Shot, and sometimes they have to place a shim under it. Mine seems to work perfectly with this combination. It gets the right embossing, it doesn't cut through. And then we're just going to crank this through, and I hold the handle on top just for stability. It's got rubber feet on the bottom so it doesn't move around. Even if I had a tablecloth like I sometimes do when I'm doing a show, it's not going to wiggle and wobble, which is awesome. So I'm going to set that down on the ground, and I'm going to get out our embossing folder and show you what our final product looks like. So when I pull that out, one side has the polka dots indented, and if you flip it over, the polka dots are raised. And depending on the type of card that you want to do, the look that you want, you can do either side. What's nice about the raised side is if you wanted to give it a pop of color, you could also sponge, and it would pick up the raised parts would pick up more color than the base parts. So that can add some dimension to your card as well. We're going to keep it simple there today though, and we just have the polka dots. So I'm going to set all the embossing materials to the side, and then we're going to get out our magnetic platform. So the magnetic platform again is specifically designed for our metal framelets and edgelets, and these are thin. This example is the number 8 from the large numbers framelets, and it's very thin. If you see it between my fingers here, it's just really super thin. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's really thin, wafer thin. So for this, you use the magnetic platform as the base. We're still going to use the cutting pad. You'll notice, I don't know if you've noticed already, but there's impressions on here from things I've cut in the past. That's perfectly normal. These cutting plates can cut hundreds of times over before you have any issue. As long as they lay flat, you should be good. So I'm going to take the glimmer paper and set that down on here, and then we're going to put the framelit on top. And why I use the magnetic platform instead of the regular one, that standard one that comes with the Big Shot, is I don't know if you can see that, but it pulls, it's got that, it's obviously named magnetic for a reason. It just has that magnetic pull, so now once I get this lined up on the paper, it's not going to move. So if I have a scrap piece of paper and I want to make sure that I'm getting the best use out of it and I'm getting everything out of it that I can line this up nice and snug with the edge of the paper, the edge of the last item that I cut, and I'm going to get the most out of this. So you've got that lined up, then you place your last cutting plate over the top and you've got your sandwich. So I'm going to pull this over to the side and get out my Big Shot one more time. Set that down here and pull this sandwich out. The thing that you gotta watch, we're just getting a late spring here in Wisconsin, so we're still a little staticky. In the winter, sometimes this does get really staticky, and it does. That static kind of overrules the magnetic force and it shifts. But it looks like everything stayed just where I wanted. I'm right on the edge of the paper, so I'm going to crank that through. Slide it back this way, and now when I lift this, it's hard to see, but I have the number 8, the 2 middle pieces pop out, and there we go. We've got our number nice and shiny and pretty to put on our card. So stay tuned, check back on Sunday. I will have a video. Again, this is the card that we're putting together. This is a card I made last year and just replaced 2017 with 2018. And so I think I might be changing up the stamp set in the corners, but check back Sunday and I'll let you know exactly what stamps we use and finish this card up. Thanks for watching. Click the like button if you liked the video, and subscribe to my channel to catch my new videos on Tuesdays, Tools and Techniques, and Simply Stamping on Sunday. If you'd like to order supplies you saw in today's video, you can visit my Stampin' Up website using the link in the description. Happy stamping!